In January, as part of our book club in the School of Life, we read Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. This month we're doing a digital declutter, so as part of that I thought I'd try and spend a day completely without my phone. You know, phones are kind of sneaky because it's only when you try and go a day without one that you realise just how much you actually rely on them. It's a cliche to say by now, but what they represent to me is this sort of weight of constant connection. A constant stream of information into the brain that gives it no time to think its own thoughts or experience real solitude. Even when you're not using the phone, just its presence sat there on the table represents the possibility of being connected at any time, and that's kind of scary. What it also is though is a crutch, and that goes to a wider problem I think our generation currently faces. We're just not very good at being bored. Think back to an old movie, I don't know, something like Ferris Bueller or Juno. Well, if you're anything like me, they give you a weird sense of nostalgia. Not because I was alive then, but for one reason or another, life just seemed simpler. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe simple is the wrong word, but at least it seems people were much more in control of their own minds. And these days, we don't really have that. We think we're always bored, but it's actually the opposite. We're always stimulated, and that's got to do something to a person. Cal Newport talks about that idea a lot in the book, and he goes into the science behind it in much more depth than I ever could, but basically, humans were never really meant to experience the level of connection that we experience now. I mean, for starters, he calls it what it really is. Our phone use has become an addiction. And that's not because we're a weak generation or snowflakes, but because billion-dollar social media companies hire hundreds of employees specifically so we can't stop using their apps. Think about it. Imagine you had to pay $1 for every minute of Instagram or TikTok you scrolled. Well, how much would you really use that app a week? Maybe a minute, right? Just to check if any of your friends had posted. Well, that's kind of the problem right there. If we actually think deeply, we don't get any real value from these apps. We use them entirely compulsively, and that's why they're so problematic. But it's also why they're so hard to quit. Well, that's where digital minimalism comes in. It's not really about never using Instagram or TikTok ever again, but it's about asking why you actually use them in the first place. Let's say you use Snapchat to keep in touch with your friends, X to read the news, Instagram to laugh at some memes, and TikTok to unwind. Well, wouldn't you be better off calling those friends, reading a newspaper, watching a comedy and having a cup of tea or playing some cards? I mean, probably. So that's what digital minimalism really is. It's not about removing those things, but about optimizing them so that they become tools rather than compulsions. And there's a lot of things we can do to get around that problem, so I'll try and go over some of them now. I mean, the first is optimizing your actual content streams. What's the point in scrolling TikTok for an hour, and then Reels, and then YouTube Shorts? Why not just choose one of those platforms and remove the rest? Why do you follow a ton of celebrities and meme accounts? Maybe go through those and clean them up so you're just following your friends. Why do you spend hours getting small tidbits of information rather than just consuming that in a more consolidated form? Think reading a news article instead of scrolling through Twitter feeds. The idea then is to try as best as you can to separate those tasks into their most usable forms. To go analog wherever you can to achieve the same results but in a better way. To replace the reasons why you feel the need to use social media. That's the crux of digital minimalism. Making your social media use fully intentional. Then we can't ignore the other big part of it, social media. It's supposed to be social, right? It's the way we communicate with other people and keep up those friendships, but in many ways it does the opposite. Hundreds of shallow acquaintances that don't give you the time to pursue meaningful relationships with a select few. There's something in psychology called the Dunbar number. It basically says that after about 150 people, our brains start to lose track. They can't process all that anymore. But that's where it gets weird, because nowadays we're literally following hundreds of people. Your brain and social media have expanded that tribe to levels it was never supposed to cope with, and for a lot of people that can start to feel really overwhelming. It sounds kind of cutthroat, but how many of those people you follow do you actually have a real relationship with? And for the people you don't, in many ways that's leading to this feeling of being overwhelmed. So maybe something to think about there. Where can you consolidate those friendships to strengthen your bond with the people you really care about? And then finally, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Most of us just use social media because we're bored. It's something to do, something to stimulate us, and I think the answer here is twofold. Firstly, it comes down to reclaiming solitude. Imagine sitting in your room for a whole day without scrolling and with nothing to do. That seems painful, right? But why should it? It's a natural part of life, and in many ways a necessary part of life to have ideas and to get motivated to do things. I mean, I find when you're most bored is actually when you start to think about what you want to do rather than just habitually scrolling. So give that a go. Maybe one day or even for an hour of a day, just turn it all off. Zero interaction. Treat it like an experiment. Maybe keep a journal next to you and just see what comes out of your brain when it's truly alone for a little while. And then next is reclaiming leisure. It's kind of a shame, but I feel like social media has sapped a lot of the fun out of our lives because it gives us that easy crutch. Instead of painting, walking, listening to music, reading, going outside, cooking good food, we just scroll because it's easier. So that's another thing to try out. Spend some time and write out a list of things you actually enjoy and then schedule them in. Actually make a real effort to do the stuff you like. What that all ends with is a digital declutter. A month where you test the waters, and something I challenge everyone to do. Delete Instagram, TikTok, Reddit and Twitter and leave your phone as a tool. You can still use those apps, but only on a laptop or tablet when you're at home and you actually want to. Try to add in new things to your life, new hobbies, analog methods of getting what you want out of your phone. Meet your friends in person, text them or call them instead of talking through memes. Leave your phone at home some days, spend some time where you don't need to be reachable. Just go 30 days with as little technology as possible. And when those 30 days are up, ask yourself what you missed. Maybe some things really are valuable to you, and now's when you can start to reintroduce them, but just try for 30 days to see the other side. So I guess that just about covers it. Look, I'm not telling you to never use social media again. I mean, you're watching this on YouTube, but what I am saying is to take some time and think about how you're using it, how you can better optimize it to bring you true fulfillment. Manifest excellence. I'm proud of you.
For